Okay, so this is the second part to the slab assignment. I've let these be dry overnight. You can see they're a little stiffer. They're not quite so stiff you can't work with them. Got a little movement in them. I've got my tools here, so I'm gonna show you which tools to use now. So you can use this is brand new. It's a square wooden tool. You can use this tool. I think this one's plastic, but most of these are wood. They're kind of a kidney slash right angle tool, or this tool for when using on the surface, you can smooth out the surface, and you'll notice if there are any, go book directions, you'll notice if there are any, it kind of drags a little bit. If it drags too much, you can put slip on it, a little bit of slip, not a lot. You don't want to get them super wet because that defeats the purpose of letting them dry overnight. So I've already cut one edge over here, and it's pretty straight. So I'm gonna show a joining technique for that. This one has kind of gotten a little bit off, but I use a straight edge to cut them, and you can do them with a bevel. So these are 4 different knives that I use, and you can even use a wooden knife if you want. This is one of my tools that I like to use a lot, and it's an old fettling knife, and it's either been worn down or ground down. This is actually from my father's studio, or you can use a regular knife. Anybody knows whose this is? Somebody left it on there. This would be a good tool as well. I don't know where it came from. It looks like somebody, I don't know what it is. It's some type of kitchen knife, but it's really small. But that would work as well. So if I'm smoothing out the surface, then I know that's going to be, I'm going to have to flip it over. So, but I'm going to do edge to edge first. So I take, what happened to my slip? Yeah, okay, sorry. I'm not trying to accuse anybody. I just had it ready for yeah, you can have that. All right, thank you. So I have some slip. It's already prepared. If you need some, use the same slip as the clay you're using. You can get it out of usually get it out of the reclaim where there's some really moist clay in there. And I shake it up every time I use it because it settles out and it gets watery at the top. So I wanted a relatively thick slip. You can see it has some grog in it like the clay. So if you're using it on the surface, you may want to strain it for that if you want a really smooth surface. So don't use a little teeny brush unless you're making small works. Use a large enough brush that you don't have to really do it more than once. So I'm going to scratch this place on the edge, and you can go and make sure it's really nice and strong scratch, relatively deep, so that, but not too deep, so that it'll join well. And then I'm going to take this other piece, and now you see I have like a kind of an edge there that I'm going to leave, but I will show you a different way of cutting. So on this one, since I'm doing edge to edge, I've got to scratch this side. So if it gets too dry on you, you can always add a coil of clay, which I'm going to need to get some wet clay out in just a second. One thing I did not get out. All right, so I've scratched it really well. You can see that. And then I put slip. You probably don't have to put slip on both parts, but it might help. So don't run your brush on there so hard that you erase the. You want it to go down into the grooves, you know, your clay, and actually I could use with a little bit more slip here. So I'm just getting a little bit more on the brush. So just make sure that the whole thing is covered with slip. All your scratching, you can be more precise than I am if you want, but just make sure where you join them is going to be. All right, I'm going to do a flat cut here. And since I kind of work kind of unusual where I like things going in odd directions, then I'm going to cut this at a weird angle. All right, and then this one's got to be cut too. So I'm not going to do quite as much of an angle there, but I want it to be a little bit, you know, give me a little bit of size there. So then I'm going to take this one. I think I'm going to go ahead and I can already see that slip is soaking in. So I'm going to also slip this one. So just go ahead and slip it. You can see I'm using my whole arm. I'm supporting the slab so it doesn't break on me while I'm working with it. Cut in half. So because it's a little stiff, I can do this. And you want to get it right on the edge, or if you don't want it on the edge, this piece is going to have some edges sticking out in different directions, but it's also going to have at least one straight edge. All right. So I could make another straight edge, so I could do 2 of these at a time, right? You want to make sure it goes into there. You can push down just a little bit. If you're worried, you can kind of pat it and let it go down there. And I'm going to use this kind of to support it for a second while I get a piece of clay. All right, so this is much moister than the clay I'm working with now. And we talked about rolling coils, so I don't necessarily have to go over that again, but I'm going to show you because I want some coils, and you can do big coils. If it's not showing, or if you want it to show, you know, you can decide how thick you want these. You don't really need a whole lot of clay for this, so just enough to kind of like seal the. If you get it too thick, that's going to be where it pulls. So it could aid in cracking a piece, especially if you're working with thin slabs. So you don't necessarily have to do this if you get really good at it. I do it for insurance, and so I put another bit of slip there, and that's just a brush stroke, and then that way I'm not working with the clay on, you know, the slip on my hands. And then I push it down in the corner from one edge to the next, so it's going to bunch up. So you just kind of like, it'll stretch out a little bit, and then pinch it off, and then you can take your finger or a sponge and just run your finger along there and make sure that it goes in really well, and not too much because you're going to pressure it off the edge there. And you go back and make sure that it didn't move that much from the edge. And later you might want to straighten your piece by paddling it a little bit. Do whatever you want to the surface, either make it smoother once you stand it up. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and stand this up, which is going to be off at a little bit of an angle. Actually, I'm going to do the bevel cut. So I'm going to do 2 bevel cuts. I have 3 more pieces of clay ready, and one of them is going to be a bevel cut. Actually, so I got to move this out of the way. I did it on here. So it's not wanting to move that much. All right, well, I'll just move my tools out of the way. All right. So bring this over a little bit. All right, so if you're gonna do a bevel cut, I can almost eyeball this straight cut, so I can just do that, and that's gonna make that side straight. And I'm gonna try and go out as far as I can with the slab. So you go at a 45-degree angle and cut along the edge, and the other one will be also a 45-degree angle, and the two 45-degree angles, I'm just going to lean it on there for now. So I've already cut this on one side, so I'm going to cut it on another one now. So it also needs to be cut straight there, and then this one is going to be also cut at a 45-degree angle. Doesn't matter if it's perfect, you can paddle it out if you want. All right, so whoops, did y'all notice what I did? I have to do this side. So what? I could do it that way, but I'd lose the top. I want the edge there. Yeah. So that's just the way that it goes, right? So I'll just go out a little bit and do the other side that way. No, I want that one straight. So, sorry about this. I'm just gonna have to recut it. So I'll do it like this. Put it right there. Use that as my marker. Cut the other direction. All right, kind of haphazard, but I can't move things out of my way right now. All right, so this is gonna go like that. So it'll fit together. You can fit it together like that. You can even scratch them in place. So I've got this, and I'm gonna scratch them. Scratch this one. You don't have to do it in this order. You can do it in different orders depending on how strong your slab is. I mean, how dry it is, not strong. It's actually stronger leather hard. When you get it dry, it's more brittle. So it's easier to crack it when you're working with it the drier it gets. So if you're working with paper clay, you can get away with a lot more. So that joint, like there, is a bevel. But I need one of these, the long, this is why I have these long ones, some of them, and I just paddle it, hold it in place, paddle it a little bit, and and I've already got a little bit of slip there, but I'm gonna put a little more, and do the joining. So I'm gonna roll out some moist clay and use this rolled piece in the crevice there on the inside, which will be the inside. This is going to be an open form. It may not be functional, so to speak, but it will be an open form. So that was almost just right. I got right up to the edge there. And sometimes when you do this, it will make the joint go out, and especially if you want really precise joints, then you'll have to do it that way. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece, and I've got a board for this. So I'm going to take this smaller board, I'm I'm gonna put paper down, right, this piece of paper, and I'm going to just leave it like that for now. If I want to, I can smooth the surface to make sure there's no, that'll also show me if there are air bubbles in there. But I'm gonna smooth where I'm gonna, basically where it goes. So then I'm gonna take this, and well, that one's a little softer, so that's a little bit problematic. So I'm gonna take this and put it on here and mark it. I could leave some of this out, or just tear it if I wanted to, but I'm probably gonna make it square at the bottom. So I'm gonna mark it, and I can use my wooden knife for this. I'm gonna mark it where I'm gonna scratch, set this aside, scratch it some, and then I've got to turn this back on its edge and scratch the side of it. Got a piece of cloth there on there, and then the other direction, and slip on there, slip, slip. I don't expect you to be able to do this as fast as I'm doing it. And it's also a lot easier if the slabs are somewhat stiff when you do it, so it takes some planning. And then I'm gonna put these in place, and that part may wind up changing anyway, but I don't want it, at this point, I don't really want it to fall apart. You can see how it's kind of wobbly on both of these pieces, but make sure that you get a good join there, and then do the same thing, reinforce it. Now this is gonna be large enough I can get down in there and reinforce it when I put the other one on there. So I've got an unusual shape on there, but it'll show what I'm doing in just a minute. All right, I'll show you what'll happen with the form. So this side is basically perpendicular, like to the plank, to the table. So it goes straight up. The other one's going to slant a little, so it's going to give me some change in the way I attach it. All right, so I need another piece of clay. I've got one already here that's big enough, so I'm gonna. Did I already do that? I did, didn't I? Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna put that there and attach it. And this is where, you know, even if you don't see this, you still want your craftsmanship to be good. If it does wind up being a form that is functional, you know, where you can put, say, plants or something down in it, then, and you want to be able to clean it out, then you definitely don't want a lot of irregularity down there. I'm going to use this dry brush to kind of use it to smooth it out. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and scratch these edges. You can see it kind of cracking there. I don't know how tall it's going to be. So actually, that's not the edge. Yeah, that is the edge it needs to be. So I'm scratching, doing it at angles to each other, putting slip. Actually, I shouldn't be putting slip yet, but you know, put slip down in that crack too. Well, yeah, and go ahead and put the slip there. That'll be fine. All right, so this piece, which is a little stiffer, I'm gonna place in place, and it's gonna kind of go at an angle. So I gotta go back a little further until it rests right. I could leave it open at the bottom. I think I'm gonna do that and let it, and then fill in the corners so it can still be functional. So I'm gonna paddle this in so it gets where I want it. So it's gonna be a little irregular, right? It's not gonna be the perfect shape. So I haven't joined it yet, so I'm gonna like join it, like I'm gonna mark it where it's gonna go, take it off. I may have to re-scratch. So leave it like that. Yeah, my scratching is a little off. Actually, yeah, so I got a scratch down here, scratch here. I've got a mark on here that I've got to scratch where I'm gonna attach it. And a mark here where I'm gonna attach it. The mark from the slip, I'm just following that mark from the slip. I'm being a little bit extra in there, but I can smooth that out if I want to later. So then I'm gonna put a good bit of slip on where I scratched it. Slip on, this one I didn't scratch enough. So I'm gonna scratch here. Scratch here. And so then I scratch here and here as well. And then make sure everything's got slip on it. Right? So far, any questions?
No, sir.
No, sir. Slip down here. And then put it together. So. Oh, I did it a little differently this time. I actually got it off there. All right, let's see. Yeah. Go in with that a little bit, then on a paddle it in place. And that will hold up. So this side is going to be kind of warped looking. You can see I've got it coming off apart there a little bit, so I just paddle it some more, and I can later add a little bit of clay there as well. So I get a little twist on one side, right? And then I do the same thing that I did before. I take and roll out pieces of clay. And I'm gonna have a hole here probably. So that one's going to curve, and the other sides are going to be relatively flat. And I kind of like that difference. And if they're cracking open, then I just paddle them a little bit, like they do, kind of like split at the edges after you've been working with them for a while. Unless you're like doing really dry leather hard slabs that don't move that much, and you're working really precisely. So the cardboard, if you want to work really precisely, the cardboard will help you do that. So I improvise the cuts on these, and that's why you get that curve. And that's one of the things that I do a lot of, both in music and in art, is improvise. It's not all improvisation, because if you have experience, then that tells you what's going to happen to some extent, and you're ready for whatever happens that you're not ready for, or that you don't expect, which is kind of nice, because the things that you don't expect, you can often just work with them. It's like working with nature. You know, a farmer that works with nature, they know the systems in nature, They know the spiritual forces behind nature, and they do things accordingly. Now, when I have these overlaps, like I have on these backside, I can put a coil there as well as on the inside. And that's probably what I'm going to do on all of this. That's not probably, that is what I'm going to do. And then that hole there, I'm going to probably fill that from the inside so I get the texture of the rip, if that makes any sense. The edges, these edges that I like, which are torn edges, and that's a contrast with these more regular edges. So I have 2 regular edges and 2 that are not regular, and I kind of like that. And you could also face them the other way. You could have this one facing that way and this one facing this way, but here they're both facing this way. So that's basically it. I go and get my hand down in there and add clay. I'm going to add a little piece of clay in the bottom there, where in the corners, so that and I can put slip on it just to make sure that it fills. So I'm going to push in there, and that will mean that this piece will not leak if I do decide to put some type of liquid in there. And then I've got a little bit down here that might leak, so I'm going to reach my hand down in there and push a little piece in there. And then I'll also go back later in this, after the demonstration, and keep working on this. This piece I'll reinforce. I might take pieces like this and add, either on the surface, like that, to give a nice texture, or I can leave that surface flat and use decals on it, which is what I did. I don't really want to pick up my pieces with really messy hands, but this is a decal piece, and you can see I did put an imprint of some clay there, but it looked like it would fit, the hand would fit on there. So I have some of my drawings that I've turned into decals, and some lines from some of my poems, and they also get decals. And that is on a light glaze and then low fired a second time, or a third time actually, because they're bisque fired, glaze fired, and then the decals are fired. Now this is another piece that has irregular sides, not irregular, but regular sides, like flat slabs. And then the top started with one of these forms. So I'm gonna have to go and get my slabs that I made. Just a minute, not even a minute. So one of the things I also like to do with the slabs, because I have flat surfaces sometimes, is to have those flat surfaces so that I can do painting on them, or make simple prints. One of the things, you ever made snowflakes by cutting paper? Well, you can make patterns and take newsprint, or even this paper here. So what I've done is I've wrapped this in paper. This is a packing container, some type of packing, this is like paper comes on, or but it's a very thick cardboard round form, rounded form. So, and then I just taped it once with a piece of masking tape, and I'll have masking tape out so you can use it if you want. All right, so I have these textured slabs, and they're good. I'm going to just put that one aside. They're good for this type of thing. So what I'm going to do is, I've got this slab right here, which also needs paper under it. So I'm going to put this slab down. This piece has got the edges on it are too wide, so I'm just going to, at a slight angle, cut along the edge here. And I'm gonna get rid of those pieces. I may use them in the piece, but they're gonna be, they're not gonna be the bottom. The bottom is gonna be right where the slabs meet the bottom. All right, so those are some pieces I could use in my improvisational attachments. So I'll set them aside. Buried it. There it is. Anybody know where my other paddle is? Anybody using it? I like the other one. It's not made with particle board. You can see this thing came apart. But I'm gonna also just paddle this. That keeps it. And then I can paddle the edge so that I don't see that seam as much. The paddle also will leave marks, so that's kind of interesting too. All right, so I've got this, and I'm gonna have a piece, this sitting on there, and this piece is gonna wrap around, but I want to cut a straight edge on it, so there's not a lot of room here to work when I'm working on more than one piece at a time.
Sir,
Yes,
question.
question?
What glaze did you use for that?
This may be slip, or it may be the copper red. I don't think it's the copper red, or it may be underglazed red, but it's fired in the outdoor kiln. So, so I've got probably blue slips and then maybe underglaze as well, because I wanted a strong blue, and I knew that I was going to fire it in the. I think I fired it out in the gas kiln. I may have fired it electric. I don't know. It's been a while since I made that piece, about a year or two ago. So, so it's basically working with blue glazes, blue slips, blue underglaze, and I get, you know, sometimes a combination of those, sometimes just one and a clear glaze. So this piece, I'm not going to change the slab yet, but I need a straight cut, and I'm going to take this and scratch, which now my tools are buried here somewhere. So what happened to it? Oh well, I could scratch with something else, but I prefer using the. Oh yeah, there it is. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This happens to me all the time. It's not old age. I've always been kind of spacey, or not always, but yeah, always. Even as a child, my mother said I just stared off, didn't talk a lot, and my pet playpen, something they used to do, put kids in cages, right? Y'all, did any of y'all's families use playpens?
They had to.
That's not a good joke. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But
No, I did. I had a little cage. I don't know.
well,
I
you,
tried
know,
dog
you,
food,
you
so
get
I had to.
you especially 2 years old. You have to watch all the time. But a 2-year-old could probably crawl out of a playpen. But yeah, I get put in the playpen, and I would just sit there, and I was content as a child. What happened, you know, right?
I was a terrible child. I was a bad parent.
Yeah, me. No, I wasn't a terrible child. It was later. They had to worry about me when I was in college. Not until I got to college did they have to worry about me. Maybe earlier. I was a daredevil, so I blew things up with firecrackers and stuff like that. And jumped ramps with my bicycle. Nearly killed myself a couple of times that way. All right, so scratching, and I probably only need to scratch one of these because this is pretty soft. Actually, both of them are pretty soft. And so I'm gonna put slip around here. The problem is that slip might get on the paper and make the paper stick a little more, but by the time I get done with it, it'll probably be easy to get out. So, all right, so I've scratched these, I'll put slip on it. I'm gonna bring it all the way around, and this one's the better slab. but I'm gonna have them overlap. So, so what I wanna do there is also scratch. So I'm gonna scratch this, scratch there, overlap it with some slip, and I probably am not even in the camera. Oh well.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
So if I could edit, I don't have an editing program right now that's working on my computer, so.
Don't worry, you're still on the screen. You're still in front.
So there. So I'll wrap this around and push it down just a little bit. I've got this patterning on here, so I don't quite want to get rid of that. And if I don't want to get rid of the patterning here that much, then I can just sort of pat it with my hand, got rid of some of it, but that's okay. I got a chunk of clay in there. All right, so I'm gonna wobble this a little bit and get it out of there. All right, so I got that out, it's already standing up, right? So I'm going to cut this a little bit outside because I like to wrap and roll the bottom slab on these pieces. I've done a couple of these improvisational pieces. I kind of messed up there on this edge. There we go. All right, so, and then just take that off. And, all right, I could leave it like that and it'd probably be all right, but I'm gonna add a clay coil on the inside. And so I'm quickly doing that. If I had an assistant, I'd probably just say, okay, move that for me, go get this, go get that, right? I don't have an assistant. I have a work study, they're pretty good, but I don't have them for class. All right. Slip, put it down in the edge, or you could slip the piece that you're gonna put in there. And I can see down in here, but y'all can't. So I've got, it's big enough I can get my hand down in there. I'm gonna push it in really loosely all the way around. See, it stops there. All right, that's good. And I pitched off just a little bit. All right, and then smooth it out even more. And like I said, you can go back in with a sponge and smooth it out later. All right, so I've got this finished piece, right, basically, and I have an overlap, you can see. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use that as part of the design and just paddle it down, and it's gonna give me an edge, and I can glaze up to that point if I want, or I can glaze below it, but that also attaches it even better. And then if I want it concave, just pat it a little bit, it becomes concave, and it'll sit around the edge. And I can fool around with this until I get what I want. But that's basically it. I can make it rounder, or I can leave it kind of lopsided. I can go in and I can push it out from the inside. I can take a metal rib and push it out from the inside, which I also buried. Yep, I buried. This has got a little, no, that's not gonna be a good one. So I could, yeah, I can't find my metal rib either, so it's buried in here somewhere. All right, so that's basically the assignment. Make three different slab forms, 2 for practice, and you can do it any way. You can make your final larger piece either you may have to make one of each, but your final one has to be a foot tall, and you can make it a rounded one like this, a slab piece like this with the straight sides or the straight joins, or you can, and a third one has to be a combination of the two. All right, and you can use also the other forms we have over there besides the dowel forms. Just make sure they don't stick. If you leave them overnight, it can dry and crack on you. So that's the assignment. And oh, this is another tool. When it's leather hard, this is a great tool. Jeff Caller showed me this tool. It's a woodworking tool, but it works really good for ceramics, except that it rusts and gets dull pretty quick, especially with dry clay. So that's basically the assignment. I'll probably work on this some more. If not today, then I'll cover it up. And that's the other thing. If you're doing the slabs and you're going to work on them later, then cover them up. If you know you can't be back more than 2 days, or after a day, not 2 days, but more than a day, if you want to come back the next day, you can just drape over the top of it. If your piece is starting to dry out on you and you still want to work on it, spray it down, but not too wet, because that'll crack the piece. Spray it down and wrap it in plastic. And if you wrap it in plastic, that means you got to wrap it from the bottom all the way and close the plastic around it. All right, so you got to put plastic under it. If you want it to dry out a little bit, you can leave it on the wood and the paper and let it dry out a little bit more, but still you can drape the top because the top dries out quicker. All right, that's the assignment. Now I'm gonna take a break. First I gotta cut off the camera.
You were in frame follow.
Huh?
You were in frame follow.
Oh, the whole thing?